everybody, I'm Molly Mahon and I am a textile artist. I am based in Sussex and I create all my patterns using a form of craft called block printing. So my designs I draw first in my studio and then I either carve them into lino or I take them with me to India and I have them carved into wooden blocks. I now have a range of fabrics and wallpapers. As many of them as possible are hand block printed in India, and then we also work with some printers up in the north of England as well. And we have 5 collections of fabrics and 1 collection of wallpaper. And today I am going to show you how you can create a little pretty repeat pattern at your kitchen table without needing heavy wooden blocks and without being able to access lino and things like that at the moment. I'm going to show you what you might be able to find at home in your children's art cupboards and things like that. And by the end of this little lesson, we will have printed a piece of paper and I'll also talk you through how to print on fabric. The patterns that I'm going to print are here. So I'm going to show you how you could create a really sweet little repeat print that is done with a potato. So we're going to do that in a minute. So that's the first one we're going to show you. And then I've also made myself a little rainbow tea towel. So I'm going to talk you through how I've created that design too. So first things is your list of materials. You really don't need very much. On my table here I have a bit of felt, a little bit of padding. It's nice to have that, but actually you don't have to have any padding. A potato has its own sort of give in it, so you can print, you know, straight down onto the tabletop. Paper, if you're printing with paper, we need paper. Start with any paper, in fact start with scrap paper till you're sure what you're going to be printing, and then you could be doing rolls of lining paper for wallpaper. Any paper you like you could print on, so you could get some brown paper and start printing for wrapping paper, anything like that. But you need paper, then you need a pencil to draw your design. Ideally a piece of tracing paper, but again you can draw straight onto your potato. Potato, obviously, don't worry about what brand, any type of potato will do. A little knife to carve out your design. So if you're planning on doing this with your children, safety note, don't let them have the knife. Maybe you could help them with that element and then they could start the printing. And what I found recently is really fun for added detail is using little biscuit cutters. So I've got this round biscuit cutter here. Then you obviously need your paint and either a paintbrush or a sponge to apply your paint onto your potato. And as we go along, I'll just talk through the different sort of paints you could be using depending on whether you're printing onto paper or fabric. So first things first, you've got to think about your design. Design inspiration comes all over the place. It could be on a walk in nature, pick up a leaf, draw around that. That creates the most brilliant repeat design. I often do that. I have a couple of designs that I've done from going out in nature and coming back with a fern leaf or a holly leaf, that sort of thing, an oak leaf. I use nature as a massive inspiration in my work. Then you probably all have access obviously to the internet and to books, so look at places that you love. I love Charleston Farmhouse, and again I'm really inspired by all the circles and dots and dashes that they use there, and so they're really lovely simple designs that you could start to implement here. So design and inspiration is all around you, but keep it simple. That's my main piece of advice. Don't try and do anything too ambitious. My designs on my fabrics and wallpapers, and you can see those all on my website by the way, which is mollymahon.com. Mahon is M-A-H-O-N. Or follow me on my Instagram, which is Molly Mahon Block Printing. And then you can see all the kind of designs I do, and I've put some up behind me. I'm in my studio. I've stuck some up behind me. Mostly they're really, really very simple and they're repeated, and it's when you start to repeat something that it becomes interesting. So don't judge your design based on the first element that you carve. Wait till you've printed it a bit and see how it looks. We'll look at the negative space that often we forget to think about when we're creating our design as well, and I'll talk you through negative space is the bit that is left unprinted, and I'm going to talk you through that and how that adds to a design. So first thing, keep it simple. You can do exactly what I'm doing here. So I decided that I wanted to do a 2-colour print, and I have drawn onto my tracing paper a fairly crude star, and I've drawn the circle in the middle because I'm going to use this biscuit cutter to cut that hole away in the middle. I'll show you in a minute. So I have drawn, I've got mine in stages, otherwise my video would be too long. I've drawn it onto tracing paper, and then you cut your potato in half. Obviously make sure that your design is going to fit onto it, and you can use a great big baking potato if you want a big print. So whatever you've got, make sure it's going to fit. I cut the potato directly down the middle. Put my tracing paper onto the potato, and then I'm just going to push quite hard so that it marks the potato along the lines of the star that I've already drawn. Okay, I have done all this fast and first because I want to kind of move quite quickly. So there you go, you can see how the pencil gets marked onto the potato. Next, I want to cut away the bit of the potato that's not going to print. So I've got this little fruit knife, and I start by just carving round the edge of the potato to a depth of about 1/2 centimetre all the way round. So I'm going to go all the way around, just cutting round it, not all the way through, just round the edge. Okay, and then I'm going to cut down the sides of my triangle. You see here, so I'm just going to cut away down there. I'm going to cut away down there. Oh, it's quite fun, this bit. Now remember, actually, it's worth saying, the whole process of building towards your print should also be enjoyable. So don't race through this. Enjoy this element. Take your time over it. Printing is a lovely, lovely thing, but getting there and being organised and having everything ready and nice is also really important. So I've cut down the edges of the star, and then I'm just going to cut that piece away. So going into the slice where I've already taken it away, I'm cutting underneath up to the edges, and that piece of potato comes away nicely. There you go, and you just start to work your way all around the star. So I'll just do another one. I'm going to cut through the edges here, hope you can see, and then I'm going to slice it away and pull that bit of potato away, and my star is starting to form. Okay, so I would carry on and do the rest of it, but just to keep moving, I've then got this little round biscuit cutter, which is going to take out the centre of my star. I'm not going to discard that. I'm going to keep that little round bit because I'm going to use it to fill in the star afterwards. The one I showed you has a little pink circle in the middle. So I'm going to get my biscuit cutter, put it right in the middle of my star, and I'm going to push it all the way through. Again, mums and dads, you might do this for your kids. So just keep going so it goes right through the potato, and then hopefully when you remove it, there you go, you've got your little bit of potato in here, pop it out, and there is your bit of potato ready to print the dot afterwards. Okay, so you'll keep going and you'll get your star cut out from there, and you will end up with the one that I've just printed with earlier. You'll end up with a print. There we go. So fun and so simple, and at the moment all you've done is get out a knife and an old potato. Right, next we're going to get our sheet of paper ready. And again, just if you've got a really nice sheet, I've got this nice sheet of paper here, just practice on a rough piece first. It really helps if you, I always have a tea towel nearby, dry your potato off so you've got a nice dry surface. And then I am using emulsion paint here. If you're printing onto paper, you can use any paint that you can get your hands on. Don't worry about what it is. Most paints stick to paper. I always use water-based paints. I like using chalk paints or emulsion paints. They dry really fast. So if you've got oil paints, you can use them, but you're going to have to stick that piece of paper up to dry. It will take a very long time to dry. And again, I don't think oil is going to be so good for children and hands and things like that. So I have these little things called stipplers but you could, again, you could cut up an old bathroom sponge, or you could just use a paintbrush. I've got a paintbrush here, and just paint it on. Anything like that works. So we're going to get our print, get our paint, and pop it on just the top layer of the bit that's been carved, been left. There we go, nice even coverage. And then when I print, I look right over the top of my work. Sometimes I actually take my paper down if it's curving like this. I'm just going to get going and show you. I look right over the top so that I know that I'm going to be printing directly in the middle of my page, and I commit and I press it down, and then very carefully but confidently lift it off, and we have our first print. Done with a potato. Really, we can all be so creative at home. It's such a lovely thing. And you have to reapply the paint between each print. You can't then print again. You want to reapply your paint, nice even layer again. And then I'm going to now print directly below it. So I want the corners of the stars to meet. So I'm going to have to look from the side. There we go. Press it down, give it a confident little push, lift it up, and our second one's in place. Now, you can slowly see that the space that I haven't printed is now becoming part of a pattern. That is the negative space. And the more you print and the more you practice with the designs, the more you start to see what that space might look like. And it's really important. So I'm going to join the corners of the stars now, like that. I'm just going to do a few more to show you. This is exactly the same as the one that I'd finished earlier. So there we go, I'm going to do that one. Okay. So now, do you see how this space here hasn't been printed at all, but there is a pattern there? That's negative space, and that's what makes a design really interesting, that being aware of the space that's not being printed as much as the space that is becomes a really lovely thing. I love adding a couple of colours, so I'm going to now, again, I've got another emulsion paint. I've gone for this really subtle, sweet little pale pink, and I'm going to simply fill in the holes in the middle of my stars. What's nice is if I had covered the whole page with stars first, I've got it all laid out, I'm not too worrying about lining it up or anything. I can really, really relax now and enjoy the process and just get into the rhythm of loading up the potato and then applying it to my print. When I started to do my workshops, I thought mainly it would be because people wanted to produce their own napkins, tea towels, items like that we do. And actually what I've learned is that the process of block printing is very, very therapeutic. And people come on my workshops and then go away and they feel, well, they say they feel so much calmer and actually more relaxed, and you concentrate so much on what you're doing that time goes by and all those other thoughts are put away. And I've come to realise that during this time as well that we're all going through, having something creative to do is really, really helpful. Anybody can do this. Children can do it, obviously not using the knife bit, but children, very young children can do it. If you've got a nice water-based washable paint, doesn't matter what their print looks like. It's just the fact that they're busy and that they're doing something, and it just fills a bit of the time as well, doesn't it? So don't worry about what they're creating. And parents can do it as well. I mean, there's no age barrier to this. Anybody and everybody can do it. And I've always said that it's really important for us as adults, and particularly for parents, to take a bit of time out and be creative. It's a way of being mindful, and it's another way of sort of calming ourselves and relaxing ourselves. Some people go and do yoga, some people go for a run. There are loads of ways of doing that. You might go and have a massage. But for me, I find that a bit of quiet, quality time in my studio, just printing, has all that same effect on me. And I find it very kind of peaceful process to do. So please, mums and dads, have a go as well. And actually what you might find is that your children's concentration doesn't last as long and that they just disappear off and go and do something else. Don't clear it away. Carry on. Keep printing for yourselves, because actually it's really, really pleasing. And you can also do something really useful. You could print some Christmas wrapping paper or other elements. We're going to look now at printing on fabric. So everybody should embrace this and have a go. And now the next one I'm going to do is, I have ready-made tea towels because I run workshops, and we're going to try and make these available to people very soon. You could cut up an old sheet or find bits of fabric. We so often have bits of fabric stashed under our stairs and things like that. So you could easily find a piece of plain fabric and hem it. Doesn't need to be white, it could be a colour, and you print over the top of that. That works really, really nicely as well. So make your little tea towel out of something, give it a little finishing hook to make it really official, like a tea towel. And again, I don't want my video to be too long, I printed one just before, and I printed a very simple print, sort of rainbow inspired print. This has become an iconic design at the moment. It's so full of hope and it's just jolly and uplifting. So again, what I've done is I got a slightly larger potato this time, and I've done the same thing. I've traced on my very, very simple rainbow design, and then using my knife, I've scored along those lines, and then I've just cut away. We're only talking ½ centimetre deep. I've cut away the first bit like that. And then here, it is a bit more tricky. You just have to take your time and cut down the edges first, and then you find you can kind of scoop it out. Another really good tool is the end of a teaspoon, and it's really good for cleaning out these gaps like this. So you just take your time and create it. It's really not perfect, but that's what I like about block printing. I call them they're perfect imperfections. I don't like things that are too manicured and exact. I love the kind of creativity that you see through something that's been hand block printed. You can tell there's a person has been involved in it, and it has these little quirks, and to me that makes a fabric or a wallpaper lively and interesting and real. And the craft that goes into block printing is something that I'd feel very sad to see disappear. And more machinery is taking over. And so, one, I enjoy the process, and two, I think it's really important. I want to kind of preserve these things for my children to be able to witness. So we do now work with block printers a lot in India, and they're really moving ahead with what they're doing in terms of embracing more modern design. Printing very simple designs like this for me has been really a wonderful experience, and I'm learning a lot from them along the way. Anyway, you've carved your potato. Because we're printing onto fabric, you do need to use a fabric paint. So that has to be something that's specifically made with an adhering solution in it. If you look online, again, because that's how we're having to shop at the moment, you need to find something that's specifically made for fabric. It might be a screen printing paint. There are a few block printing paints out there, not very many, but screen printing fabric paint does the same job. You may find it quite thick and claggy. Just water it down a bit, it will be completely fine. And then you do exactly the same process. You load up your potato, you think very carefully about how you're going to lay it down on your piece of cloth, and you go for it. You commit, enjoy it. Everyone gets terribly nervous about printing. Once you start, you're away. Again, there's something very pleasing about just a single colour repeat all over. So once I have finished printing this, I'm going to leave it to dry, and then I will set it with a very hot, dry iron. And that adheres the paint onto the fabric, which means you can use it and wash it as much as any other tea towel out there. So this is a really lovely thing to be doing. You could be doing all your Christmas presents now while we're at home. And really that's it. It's terribly simple. We can do amazing things with potatoes. There were so many iconic fabric designers back in the day who started off, they'd practice their prints with a potato before going ahead and carving it into wood or into lino. And during this isolation period, I've realised how useful that is and actually how much you can achieve with a potato. So dig out your potatoes, dig out your pot of paint, find a bit of paper, maybe a piece of fabric. You could make yourself a scarf. I mean, there's so much we could be printing. Have fun with it first and foremost. Maybe print a card and send it to a friend. Happy printing. Do share your work. Please send it to me. Again, my Instagram's Molly Mahon, M-A-H-O-N, block printing. I love seeing your work, and I've been sharing it as well on my stories, and I think people find it really inspiring, and it helps other people come up with design ideas and things. So I'll post this on my Instagram now so you can look at it more closely, but happy printing, everybody. Bye.